I'd like to call to order the back-to-school meeting of the Board of Trustees for Thursday, August 1st, 2024. Welcome back. It's great to see everybody. I hope everybody had a nice summer and everybody's ready to hit the ground running over the next week when we bring our children back next Wednesday. First item on the agenda is the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance, and that I will turn over to Vice Chair Liz Castles.
If you'll bow your heads, please. Heavenly Father, we come to you this evening asking for your guidance, your wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us engage in meaningful discussion and allow us to grow closer as a group and nurture the bonds of our LexingtonTwo family. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before I move on to consent agenda, first I'd like to welcome Dr. David McDonald to the table, and it's good to see you and welcome. We're glad you're here. And then I'd like to say welcome back to Jake Moore. It is great to see you, and we're so glad you're well and back with us. All right, next item is the consent agenda, and if no objection, the consent agenda will stand approved as submitted. Next item is honors and accomplishments, and I will turn that over to Dr. Hefner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As we head into the new school year here in Lexington County, we know that many of our LexingtonTwo families are sending off their class of 2024 graduates for new chapters this fall in career, military, and college around the United States and beyond. So as we do each year, we've updated our LexingtonTwo college map to reflect some of the choices of the class of 2024. So I will tell you that a majority of our college-bound graduates made the decision to attend in-state colleges and universities. And for the class of 2024, the top drawing institutions for our graduates are Midlands Tech, University of South Carolina, University of South Carolina Honors College, Clemson University Honors College, Newberry College, Winthrop University, USC Upstate, USC Beaufort, Francis Marion University, SC State University, Claflin University, and Lander University. And to remind you, our class of 2024 heading away right now, probably moving into dorms, nearly 500 graduates, 218 honor graduates with a GPA of 3.5 or higher, 20-plus airport and BC athletes committed on scholarship to play at the collegiate level. We had 11 AP scholars, 375 Life and Hope qualified scholarship recipients, which is part of an estimated $17 million awarded to district graduates. And among our career-bound graduates, they saved more than $200,000 plus in total by completing their training for professional certifications at the LexingtonTwo Innovation Center during their high school day rather than taking post-training after graduation. So they were ready to work on day one, which is wonderful. So I'd like to just give them one round of applause for the class of 2024 and their families.
Outstanding.
Very exciting for them, and we wish them well in their next chapter of life. Next up, we are going to have one of our newest principals, Riverbank Elementary Principal Nick Gilcrease, is going to come to the podium to tell us about a special recognition that Riverbank learned about over the summer. Mr. Gilcrease.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, as well as Dr. Hefner. I stand before you to share the exciting news, as aforementioned, about the distinguished recognition that Riverbank has received over the summer. So we were recognized as a promising practice school, which is actually a new category for the model PLCs at work. It's the initial step in us becoming, and we will become, a model PLC at work school. So one of the premises behind it is kind of the work that aligns to some of the practices that we're already doing, but I wanted to give a quick just overview of how schools are really recognized for it. 4 things that they really look for in identifying schools is the ability to demonstrate a commitment to the PLC work, implementing those concepts over 1 to 2 years, and having a present evidence of improved student learning, as well as being able to explain not only your culture, but also your practices, as well as the structures of your school. So I'll give you, again, a quick overview of the work that Riverbank did in order to become this. So when we initially started our PLC work, we developed a collective vision, mission, and belief that fostered a shared commitment. We began our PLC work by grade level teams coming together, instructional coaches, as well as administrators, working collaboratively to monitor the students' progress, analyzing that data, and also determine what instructional strategies would and could benefit our students that needed it the most. We developed a guiding coalition, which I'm excited that this year I met with our team, and we're really revamping even that so that we have a stronger understanding of how we're going to utilize data and how we're going to push those initiatives down to the rest of the team. So that's exciting for our learning community. Another big thing that we talked about is that in any organization, the power of a team is imperative. So not one person doing all the work, but everybody working together. So we're looking to continue to strengthen not only our collaborative efforts by having high-performing collaborative teams, but we're really going to go and focus again on those 4 components of PLC, which goes back to the fact of what is it that we're asking our students to learn. The next part is how do we know that our students are learning? The third is that how do we respond when our students aren't? And most importantly, 4 is those students who are already exceeding, how are we going to make sure that they continue to grow? And as you know, many times the instruction might be taught to those students that are what most people would consider middle of the road, but what you don't realize is that those students that are also the high flyers, if you don't continue to give them the support, those that are below them will eventually catch up or surpass them. So we want to continue to make sure we're being diligent, not only with the students that need that intense, but also the students that we want to continue to strengthen. So where does that lead us? The big rock that I'm focusing on this year is how are we going to align our instructional practices? That goes back to the work of becoming a model school. So we're really going to be making sure that we spend our time in those collaborative planning meetings, being truly data-driven focused, and also the professional development that comes along with it. So at some point in time, I will stand before you and proudly share with you all about the work that we did, because we get to write our narrative about what Riverbank is and what we will become. So I want to be able to stand before you and say, hey, we did this, here's the blueprint, and now we are a model PLC school. So I look forward to moving from promising practices to becoming a model PLC school. So again, I appreciate you in advance for the opportunity to lead in such a wonderful learning community, and I can't wait to what's in store for this school year. So again, I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and welcome to Lexington, too. Okay, next we will move on to item 5 on the agenda, and that is the superintendent's report, and I will turn that back over to Dr. Hafner.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Trustees, I have a good bit of information to share with you tonight, so I'll appreciate everyone's patience as we go through it. But some of the things that we did not include in tonight's honors and accomplishments was that we did have several people and schools selected by the followers of Lexington Chronicle as Lexington's best, to include Springdale Elementary, Airport High School baseball coach Casey Bradwell, Airport High School women's sports coach Keith Morris, Airport High School, Springdale teacher Allie Brantley, Springdale principal Annette Ariel, Busby Middle School, and LexingtonTwo Adult Education Center. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention our very own Board of Trustee member, Kevin Key, not for education, but for his personal business. So we all had a wonderful evening there together, and it was nice, a nice evening for Lexington, too. So we have had a very busy summer here with our staff in the district office. We adjusted our summer learning to be known as LexingtonTwo Leads. And we asked our school leaders back in April and May, what topics did they deem most important and of interest for their professional development and the development of their staff. And so we designed their learning over 5 weeks this summer around the topics that they selected. We also used that feedback in preparing for Lex2 Learns. And Lex2 Learns started today, it took place today and tomorrow, and was a combination effort between human resources and instruction to offer prescription and choice in the PD that our staff received prior to the beginning of the school year. So I've heard some really great feedback so far, and we are looking forward to tomorrow's sessions. We held the sessions here at the Performing Arts Center and in the DEC spaces and over at Airport High School, so thank you to Airport for allowing us to host some sessions over there. Many students this summer served or participated in various camps, which you are going to hear about from Dr. McDonald a little bit later, and many of our staff members contributed to curriculum work to assist in the year ahead. We've had a great week throughout the district. I'm hearing very positive things about our schools and the intentional work that they have engaged in with their staff in preparation for the year ahead. So I am sure the momentum and excitement will build next week as we get ready to welcome our students back for a wonderful 24-25 school year. One thing that I would like to specifically highlight for staff and parents, and this will be in my superintendent's update that's coming out this evening, is the newly enacted state requirements of legislative budget proviso 1.103. LexingtonTwo's current student discipline code already requires that personal electronic devices, specifically cell phones, not be on, which is, the quote is displayed, used, or turned on during regular school hours, with the school principal determining when use is authorized or not authorized. So this proviso is prohibiting personal electronic communication devices by students during the school day, which falls in line with our current policy and our current discipline code. So I want school administration, teachers, and parents to know that at the beginning of the school year, we need to and will enforce our own LexingtonTwo policy with no devices visible or used during the instructional time of the day as we begin the school year. So we, like other districts, are awaiting that specific policy guidance. And if we have recommendations from the State Board of Education that some things need to change in our own policy, we'll certainly bring those recommendations back to the board to make adjustments based on their definitions of access and instructional time versus school day and things of that nature. So I just wanted to go ahead and talk about that and make sure that everyone is aware of that. Now, in presentation for goals and initiatives for the upcoming school year, we shift gears just a little bit. So as you can see on the monitors and follow along, our focus this summer was to motivate and arm our school administration with the knowledge and skills to do whatever it takes, truly, whatever it takes in order for our staff and students to be successful. As we move into this school year, I wanted to revisit my goals and initiatives that we are putting into place to support the achievement of those goals. So we've got several things that are new to share with you. And I know this is in board docs, and I apologize that it's not in front of everybody. I see it's in front of some, but not all. I know that this is difficult to read, but you have seen this before. For the benefit of the audience and a reminder for the board, our district has a very detailed 5-year strategic plan. This one was put in place in '21, and it will last until '26, and we submit it to the State Department each year. It's about 100 pages long, but we created what we refer to as our one-pager, which is actually one page front and back that outlines our mission and our vision and belief statements, and then also 6 priority areas from our district strategic plan, So my goals have been and continue to be modeled after the priority areas of the district plan, as you would imagine, in an attempt to streamline our efforts in the district. So, in regards to the district's priority of excelling academically, my goals are to increase the percentage of students showing growth in ELA and math as indicated on state assessments, And 2, to increase the percentage of students who are progressing on time with appropriate skills for success at their grade level. So in an effort to make those goals more attainable, we are implementing several initiatives this year to support our schools and our teachers in this work. One of the more important goals, just want to make sure I'm looking at the right thing, is that we've revamped our assessment system and shifting to MAP testing. You may have heard me talk a little bit about STAR testing versus MAP testing, but I do believe and we believe that MAP will offer us a stronger correlation document to our state assessments with a smaller margin of error in the predictability of our students' growth in math and reading, language usage, and science. One of the things that we have heard from our school administration in the past is that they were feeling really good about the growth on STAR, and then when it came to transferring that to the growth on the state assessment, it was not what they had expected it to be. So we're hoping this will help us to have a more accurate reading of the predictability of where our students are and where they're going to perform. So as part of that system, we also adopted the K-1 Fluency Screener, and this is to help us better identify literacy deficits early on. And I know Ms. Rucker and I are talking about this is near and dear to her heart, and so aligned to the science of reading, the test measures foundational skills, literal comprehension, and fluency, and it's just a 20-minute benchmark assessment, and we're excited to see how that can help us move our youngsters along at the lower levels, because we know that's where it starts, and we need to implement that growth. As you know, we are also starting our dual language immersion program at Riverbank Elementary, and these students are immersed in each language for half of the school day and receive academic instruction in that language for half of the school day. And these students will benefit from self-esteem, self-confidence, cognitive stimulation, and much, much more. So we are very excited about the implementation of that program. And as a district, we continue to focus our academic conversation around professional learning communities. You've just heard Mr. Gilcrease speak to that. We continue to, it's imperative that we provide our teachers with collaborative time to look at their data, discuss their assessments, discuss their learning strategies, and really focus on that student engagement piece. And as part of our summer work, we decided that we would focus on 4 buckets of instruction. And those buckets are, 1, learning environment, that conditions, those are talking about the conditions and qualities in the classroom and school for students to succeed. A bucket of knowledge, and that's speaking about the skills and information of the teacher and students to enhance learning. What is it that we want our students to know, and ensuring that our teachers know where to find those resources and that it's easily accessible to them. And then a bucket of assessment, understanding what students know and how to adjust instruction as needed. Varied assessment structure, even with formative and summative. We want to begin with the end in mind. What is it about the school report card that we need to be thinking about as we're planning these lessons and unit assessments? And then lastly, instructional delivery, teaching students through a variety of methods, using resources and capturing the potential of students. We want to create that intentional focus on student engagement. So those are some new initiatives that we're excited about implementing this year, and so we've had a lot going on as we prepare for that. The second priority is supporting students. So my goals as they relate to supporting students, 1 was to implement a successful multi-tiered system of support across all schools, resulting in improved student attendance, behavior management, and academic support. This is an ongoing process to improve on this process until we're best supporting our students. This has been a goal for the last 2 years, and we've continued to build and fine-tune and tweak it, and I think that this is the year our schools will feel the most comfortable about where they are in the implementation process. The second goal had to do with increasing safety and security vigilance through effective protocols and practice, so it'll be an interesting mix of initiatives here. The first is the implementation of the Bridge program. Dr. McDonald and I were talking about our students who are older than their classmates. They're 15 with 12-year-olds and 13-year-olds. And we were trying to figure out a way that we could develop a program that could get them back on a path for the appropriate grade level graduation. And so we met with the middle school, Dr. McDonald met with the middle school principals, and they started talking about the students that they have, identifying the overage students and how that they could serve them in a class that would help to combine maybe 7th and 8th grade curriculum that could shift them to the 8th grade curriculum in the middle of the year if they were being successful. So I'll talk about that at other levels in another slide. Application for schools of innovation. We're looking for waivers from the State Department that allow us to have some options with instruction for our students that may be appealing for different groups. There's a lot to explore there, and you'll hear from Dr. McDonald on this a little later in the meeting. We've worked to revamp our safety alert system. We've had BARC, and it only monitored Google Suite, but this new system, LineWise, monitors our whole devices, so not just when they're in Google Suite. So this gives us a more broad monitoring system. Of course, we're working to streamline standard operating procedures for our PowerSchool data as it pertains to attendance, behavior, and academic performance. We know that the data piece is critical in how our students are identified in the system to making sure that we have accurate information. And then you may recall that we discussed implementation of a vape and drug awareness program based on some past legal litigation, you know, the Juul stuff and suits from that. Mr. Moore would remember that. But we, as a result of that, are putting vape and drug awareness curriculum and information in our schools, but specifically this includes vape detectors at our high schools and possibly middle schools in the following year. High schools, L2IC, and Newbridge, I believe. So, and then we'll continue training with I Love You Guys for standard response protocol and reunification practices. The third priority is preparing graduates. In an effort to prepare graduates, my first goal is to increase the district's percentage of students who graduate college or career ready, as identified on the district's report card, and the second is to increase the district's graduation rate, as identified on the district's report card. So the initiatives that we're looking at this year, we've revamped the Director of Career and Technology Education to work that role to work more broadly in the K-12 sense, with an introduction of career and technology education side by side with our career development facilitators. And in addition, the director will work closely with the high schools on monitoring our students enrolling in CATE courses and becoming CATE completers alongside Ms. Joni Coleman. Streamline standard operating procedures for data. This involves improved methods in tracking all things college or career ready. So we're really trying to buckle down on our system of tracking. We're looking at developing this team of a tracking team for the data, organizing teams to review quarterly as it compares to the college and career readiness, students progressing on time, and their attendance. And then the Bridge program, as mentioned this summer, we began a conversation about the middle schools to identify those students who are above normal age. But our plan, the very next step, and it's already in conversation, is the elementary level. And then lastly, at the high school level, as we look at trying to keep our students on track for graduation. Priority 4 is recruiting and retaining employees. My goal with this is simply to increase efforts to recruit teachers and support staff while expanding strategies to attack staffing shortages. And I'm sure you'll hear about at our regular meeting in August that we feel good about where we are with our staffing. Dr. Cooper's division has done a really good job with that. But in order to maintain those initiatives, we are working on an implementation of a leadership development and support system framework. And we're developing a framework to develop our LexingtonTwo professionals at all levels. We already have some training for some of those folks at the induction level and the mentor and induction teachers. But we also want to look at developing aspiring school leaders and aspiring school principals, and that'll be part of that framework. And this is in an effort to grow our own. We've talked about that a little bit as something that we wanted to expand upon. And again, revamping Lex2 leads. That's what I mentioned about asking the administrators for feedback this summer, and so we did implement that this summer. And then Lex2 learns along the same lines. We broke down the suggested topics, and that's what our folks are participating in right now. You see this title there on the slide, By Your Side, and that's a program that Dr. Cooper's team has come along with mentors for second-year educators, and it partners them with a mentor and some online education and supports and observations and feedback that align with our 4.0 rubric. So excited to see that as a helpful assistance to our second-year educators. Schools of Innovation, this is a process that we are exploring with the State Department at this time, and you'll hear a little bit more about that when Dr. McDonald shares that information and asks for your support. Increased starting teacher salary, year 0 to $50,000. That was really big, and excited about that for our teachers, and they seem excited as well. And then lastly, realigning our instructional staff and assistant principal evaluation instrument. Our teachers are now going to join our principals in the SC Lead evaluation instrument, which is online. Our principals are very familiar with it, but that just is able to house all of our folks in the same platform, except for our assistant principals. Strangely enough, assistant principals are not in the state system yet on that platform. So what we've done is developed an instrument that is aligned with the principal's evaluation system, PADEPT, so that, again, as we're trying to grow our own, our assistant principals are learning and growing in the indicators that are part of being a principal. So that's a great thing. And priority 5, engaging our communities. The first superintendent goal is geared toward informing our families and communities of different aspects of the district. And the second goal is to capitalize on the work from this past year's marketing plan. We've had ongoing communication from the superintendent to LexingtonTwo families. In tomorrow's meeting at the convocation, I'll elaborate more on the work that we've had in this area over the summer. Again, I mentioned Lex2 Leads. I mention it again here because this was developed with the input of our folks, with the input of our principals and our school leaders and what they needed. And then again, implementing Lex2 Learns. I think that this is great. I have seen this in several versions across districts, but when I went to Dr. McDonald at the beginning of the summer and said, this is really what I want to put together, professional development options for everybody in the district. And so over the last 2 days, we've been able to do that, but the sweetest part about it is that we've been able to empower our own master teachers who have those masterful talents and gifts, and they're able to lead these sessions with their peers, and I think they've really enjoyed it, and I think our teachers have enjoyed learning from their own folks. And then lastly, you may recall a line item in the 23-24 budget for Flock and Rally marketing. I think that was mentioned in our June meeting. We are in the process of interpreting the final impact of that work, and there's a lot of data involved, and I'll plan to share it during the regular board meeting, August 15th. And so strategic priority 6, sustaining learning environments. This is the last priority of the district's strategic plan and revolves around sustaining learning environments and enhancing them to best meet our student needs. And my goal is simply to do so judiciously. We will continue, we have continued to fine-tune our safety alert system with expectations and trainings for drills. Some of those have been options for schools in the past, but we're really just kind of locking down and letting them understand that this is important and an expectation. We are revamping the radio system. You may remember that as a discussion within the 24-25 budget. This gives us a district-wide alert system. We will have communication from school to school if needed, school to district if needed, and the school administration will still have easy communication with their building if they have to be out of their building. So that's something that we're very excited about streamlining. We've added a layer to Raptor drill management called Student Safe, and this is to assist with behavior threat assessments, and that helps our staff and administration monitor if there are any previous concerns and they see new concerns, they can connect and make sure that we're following up and offering supports for the students. And then a team of our school administrators created discipline videos for the elementary level, the middle level, and the high schools, as well as a form for the students to sign acknowledging that they have viewed the information and know where it can be located and where it can be found. It'll be on the school and district websites, but it's not just something that we're saying to the students, hey, this is out there, this is something that the schools are covering in an organized fashion and talking through with the students so they have a full understanding of what our discipline code really talks about. And then suicide prevention protocol and mental health first aid training for our counselors and our school workers. That's going into effect. We've had some folks trained on that over the summer. And then the threat assessment team training. Now, Santana, San Giuliano, and Jan Scarberry are the trainers, so we don't have to send anybody anywhere. They can work with our folks here, and that's a real value to our system to work with our staff more effectively. So, again, that was a lot, but our focus this summer has been to motivate and arm our schools with the knowledge and the skills to do whatever it takes in order for our staff and students to be successful. So I hope they would tell you that we have had in the least a margin of success in this area. We conducted staff surveys following each session and have received very positive feedback, so I feel good about that. And we will continue to gather their feedback and build upon this momentum as we move into the school year. So, Madam Chair, this concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to entertain any questions that you may have or ask my team for assistance if we need some more specific details.
Are there any questions?
One question. Do we have any mental health first aid instructors, or do we just do that all external?
They are now trained in that, right? The Jan and
Train to train their
Mr.
staff?
Warren, yes.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
All right. Any others? Okay. We will now move on to administrative divisional report, and the first division is instruction, and I will turn that over to Dr. McDonald.
There you go. There we go. First time having to learn there. That's right, that's right, that's right.
Yes. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Hafter. We're certainly proud to be here tonight, and I'm looking forward to sharing some really great information from our summer work. Much of our team is here as well. And so tonight we're going to share with you some progress that we had over the summer from our summer camp programs from across the district. Overall, every day as these folks came back to the office after their camps, I must tell you how exciting it was to watch them just glow from their work with these students to help them be highly successful. So tonight we're going to share with you their progress. And of course, our camps pretty much consist of our Read to Succeed camp, which is legislatively required, our summer school programs. We have an ML camp to help support our multilingual learners, our extended day programming for our students with disabilities, and of course, this summer, we're pleased to share with you some progress on our inaugural Fine Arts Camp, which was held here at the PAC, and so we're looking forward to sharing that. First, I'd like to recognize the instruction team. They all devoted many, many hours and lots of energy really to helping these programs be successful, but most importantly, helping to impact our kids and helping them grow and learn over the course of the summer to prohibit their summer slide in learning. So we're fortunate to have them, as well as many, many great teachers across the district who stepped in to provide extra learning opportunities for our students over the summer. Our first program tonight that I want to highlight begins with our summer school programs, and so we've provided for you a little bit of information here. We had 118 high school students who participated in some form of high school, summer school, 67 middle school students, and then of course you can see there we had about 30 staff members who worked in that program. I'm very pleased that 84 credits were earned for our high school students. So that's pretty huge to know that these students were able to continue their learning and achieve more credits as the summer progressed. Here gives you a kind of a breakdown of where those students were earning their extra credits. So some of these were doing credit recovery, where they've gone back in and they've retaken a class, or they've done some extension courses to be able to move on to their next grade level. And so I do want to thank Dr. Burgraff. He's kind of headed up our summer school program, and certainly thank him for his work on that as well. Our next camp, which was very exciting, is our Read to Succeed camp. Of course, as I said, this is required by South Carolina legislation for those students who are not making the required reading progress. And so this year, in addition to learning some incredible reading skills and adding many, many more tools to their toolbox, these students got to hear from lots of guest speakers. And I think one of the highlights was they might have heard from a rather famous basketball coach who sent them some messaging, and lots of other folks. And I believe they left with a nice new pair of shoes at the end of this program. So lots of exciting times and things for them there. You can see some pictures here of just some of these students at work and hearing from guest speakers and participating in lots of activities. Just so you can see the numbers, we had 99 students who participated in the program. 52 had perfect attendance, so they were bound and determined to make sure they were there every day to get this extra support. And out of this, we only had 6 students who did not move on at the end of the program as a result of the work. And we have many students who, of course, met the exemptions that the state allows, but we're very proud of these students' progress. And I want to thank Kathy Jones-Stork and Mary Brooks, who worked with our pre-K programming, for their hard work. They're both here tonight, so I just want to thank them publicly for their hard work with our programs as well. Our next camp that we want to share with is, of course, our camp for our students with disabilities, our Camp GG, which I had to do some digging to figure out what Camp GG was, but everybody was very happy to share all the wonderful things, and it's really nice to hear the work that these folks did. This is a camp, of course, for our students who have disabilities, for them to receive their extended school year programming, and really take learning to a fun level to allow kids the opportunity to really learn some additional skills and to also really unlock some of their gifts and to help really provide for their needs. The team focused largely on social skills, behaviors, communication, and of course, they had a little fun along the way. And so you can see here in the pictures some examples of some of the activities that the kids were able to participate in. They had a vehicle day, which seemed to go over pretty well, as I understand. That seemed to be one of the favorites when they got to make noises on all the machines in the trucks. But also they had activities that focus largely on fine motor skills and all these other things that we really want to help our kids advance in. Just so you can see kind of by the numbers, of course, this program, we had 104 students who participated this year. And of that, it takes a lot of staff to help support our students with disabilities. And so you can see here sort of a breakdown of what that looked like. And also want to thank Felicia Madden, who is our special ed coordinator for early and elementary grades. She is here tonight, and she really helped lead up that program and our entire special ed department for their hard work to make that possible for our students. So we're very proud of really what they were able to achieve this summer and look forward to them putting those skills to play just next week when we get ready to come back. Our next camp that we offered this summer is for our multilingual learner camp. This camp targeted students who are relatively new to our country, students who have very low levels of English proficiency. So working again on helping these students focus on obtaining basic language, but also their social skills, literacy activities as well to help prepare them for the next grade level. And you can see here some examples of activities that they participated in. These students also received some new shoes. They were very excited that day as the folks shared. They talked about teamwork, about pulling on one another. They had a great end of camp celebration at the park where they got to play in the water. And as I understand it, Ms. Quickle, our coordinator for ML, was telling me a story about a group of children who speak very little English, were able to communicate with some other kids in the park, and she said how wonderful it was just to watch them be able to use those skills in public, working with other kids and being a part of that. And also, you can see there were some other activities related to perfect attendance, giving them some much-deserved prizes and thanking them for their work and lots of interaction, which we know our students who are multilingual learners need that kind of setting for the summer. And so we're very proud of their work. Finally, and you can see here some numbers for you with that camp. There were about 55 to 60 students who attended regularly from our elementary school, and then about 20 students. Again, these are some of our lowest proficiency students that participated in this, so it was very important for them to continue that work. Our final camp tonight that I want to share is, of course, our L2 PAC Fine Arts Summer Camp. This was an inaugural year for that, and very pleased with the results of that program. You can see we had 86 students who were either visual artists or dancers, actors, musicians from all across our district who came to those camps. It was a low-cost camp option for our families to allow them to take advantage of this beautiful facility, but also to continue to showcase their art. And so we're very pleased. Jim LeBlanc, I don't think Jim is here tonight, but Jim helped lead that program up, and just a phenomenal experience watching the students be able to perform. That was a 2-week camp, and we ended it with an opportunity for them to do a public performance. And so lots of wonderful ways to use this facility, but also to make sure that we're providing for the artistic needs of our students. And this really will lead the way for us to look at ways we can continue to expand our art offerings across the district. So that is our review of our summer programming and camps tonight, and we're happy to answer any questions. We have members of our team who help plan and prepare all of this, and I know they would love nothing more than to talk for hours about all the work they did and how, most importantly, how the kids responded to it. So we're very appreciative of their hard work, our team here, but also all of our teachers and students who participated. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McDonald. Are there any questions? Okay. Before we move any further, I need to make a correction. I was moving a little fast, welcoming everybody back. We need to move item D from executive session to item B on new business, and I will do that as an oral amendment to the agenda without objection. Item D on the executive session will be moved to item B on new business, and that is student travel. Thank you so much. I'm sorry that that happened. Next, we'll move on to unfinished business. And the first item on that is consideration of first reading of proposed revision to board policy KEC, public concerns and complaints about instructional resources. I'll entertain a motion. Ms.
Madam Chair,
Rucker?
I move to table policy KEC and ask the district to bring back a proposed policy that more closely aligns with the State Board of Education's regulation.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Rucker, a second by Mr. Bray. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. So item 7A has been tabled. Next, we will move on to item 8, which is new business. And item A is consideration of Schools of Innovation waiver. And I will turn that over to Dr. McDonald.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Don't forget your mic.
Gotta get used to that, don't I? Yeah, there we go. I got it on the first try. Hey, I'm getting better here, right? Thank you all very much. Tonight, we want to bring for your consideration a set of waiver requests that we'd like to submit to the State Board of Education. As you all may recall, several years ago in legislation was introduced that allowed school districts to ask the State Department and the State Board of Education for waivers from certain statutes or policies or rules that may allow them to innovate, provide extension, or create less constraints on helping advance students. And tonight, we bring to you two waivers for consideration. While we are currently working on others with our State Department folks, these are the first two that we have prepared for you. The State Board of Education allows us to request a number of things that include designating schools as schools of innovation, but currently working with the State Department, they have a hold on submitting those new requests for schools of innovation while they're working to tweak some language with the Federal Department of Education, as well as re-examining some of the current waivers that they have open with other districts. So we're continuing to work with them on developing that, but also looking forward to some additional support in helping provide that. We'll continue to work with them to really work on any additional waiver that we bring to this board. As per the policy of the State Board, we must present these to you and ask for your approval prior to us submitting them to the State Board of Education for approval. Of course, the purpose of a waiver is that South Carolina allows us to request exemptions from some areas of the Title 59 of law, which of course is the education section of laws. Specifically, 5919-350 gives you, the board, the ability to consider requesting exemptions from these. And before we can formally submit the waiver, we must ask you to approve these and have a 2/3 approval of your vote in order to move these forward. These waivers are to expressly exempt us from policies and statutes during the validity period of our district strategic plan. So our current strategic plan ends in 2026. So what we would be requesting would have to be revisited at that time when we submit a new strategic plan. The regulation is pretty clear in several things that we cannot ask for exemptions from. So I wanted to make sure I call those to your attention. And you can see on this slide, this includes any law that prohibits discrimination, anything that questions safety, health, and civil rights, minimum attendance requirements, as in the 180 days, anything related to state assessments and certification requirements. We are not able to ask for exemptions from those areas. And there are some good reasons for us to consider requesting a waiver from state board rules and policies and statute. First, these allow us to develop innovative practices, new programs, and work with our current existing structures to expand opportunities we can offer students or look for ways and pathways that we can support continued development in the district. Second, these also allow us flexibility if we wanted to build new programming or bring more innovative course ideas to this board for approval in the future. And finally, we also believe that this will help us to really help manage the teacher vacancy piece a little more clearer and move into a more proactive piece. We're already being proactive, but move even more and help better manage some of the shortages that we have. The first waiver tonight helps us begin to work with these two, we can begin the process of submitting other waivers that we find will help our cause and help us move forward on some great things. So our first recommendation tonight is to ask you to consider approving a waiver from 43205, 43205, 43234, and 43232. These center specifically around the amount of students that a teacher can teach in a single day. Currently, we have some courses where we are asking teachers to teach an additional section. We are compensating them for teaching that section. They are doing it voluntarily, and they're volunteering to teach those sections. This ensures that we are not over any kind of teacher load. So in other words, currently in the state, teachers can only teach 150 students in a day. We may have some sections that could potentially cause a teacher to teach over 150 students should they opt to teach these additional sections. This would clear the board and clear us to make sure that we are fully compliant. And this won't show up on any type of accreditation report because we will have a formal waiver from that. This also deals with the maximum number of preparations that a teacher can have in a single day. So allowing us to, again, compensate a teacher for being willing to take on these extra opportunities, it gives us just coverage to make sure that we are fully compliant with that. It also has to center on the number of minutes of instruction that a student receives from a teacher. So in other words, by doing this, it makes sure that we are meeting all of the requirements of all of the state statutes. These are, when we met with the members of the State Department and talked with them about what we were looking to do to make sure we were fully compliant, these were the areas that they suggested that we submit a waiver request for. Again, going back to what this allows us to do in terms of the number of sections in a day, the number of students that can be taught in a day, and the amount of time. It doesn't change seat time requirement, which we cannot ask for, but it does allow us flexibility with some other things. And again, as I said, this would take effect when it's approved by the State Board of Education, and it would be in effect until 2026 when we renew our strategic plan.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
before he moves on that recommendation, one thing that didn't make a lot of sense to me, and it's not a slide it's not on this slide, but it's another attachment also loaded to the agenda, but it kind of gives you more in bullet points. Kind of touched on it a little bit, but you basically have 3 sentences that just basically says we're going to allow schools to employ certified teachers when a properly certified teacher is unavailable. Then you say we are compensating teachers for teaching additional sections right now. And then you say this waiver will allow teachers to accept additional sections for compensation. So we're already doing it, number one. If we're already doing it, number one, then why do we need to request the waiver? And then number 2 question is, is it because you want to force any teacher, like right now you use voluntarily a lot. Is this a way that teachers could be forced to take some sections, maybe against their will.
So if I can, I'll answer the second part first with Dr. Hafner. Our intent is not to force anyone to teach an additional section. Currently, teachers are volunteering to do that. Again, they're receiving additional compensation for that work. The waiver ensures that if we have a teacher, for example, that currently on their roster may have 130 kids, and when we add that additional section, it would give them 160 kids. That would keep us compliant under that 150 mark. So that's why the waiver is. So we are doing that currently, yes. This ensures that should we ever get into a situation where it goes over that maximum number, this would give us the coverage for it. And again, we would continue to compensate teachers for this and asking for their volunteering to do that. Again, our intent, I believe, is always to have a full-time teacher and have teachers the ability to have that planning period. This just gives us the opportunity to seek volunteers who want to be compensated for teaching that extra section.
I just want to make sure that I would not be in favor of anything where we are requiring a teacher to do it, who may not want to. I mean, some teachers need that extra time during their preparation period and maybe need the mental break and things. I really would not want to move toward approving anything that gives the indication that at least this board member and probably a lot of others would be forcing any teachers to do this, number one. And number two, I guess it gets back to my same question, because I don't think both of our high schools right now are, I think, still on 4 periods a day. So, nope, they're not. Okay. So we do have some that are approaching the 150, or?
We could. I don't have the specific numbers. Again, this would give us the ability that if those numbers began to go up, it would cover that. So yes, I don't have the specific numbers of where we are, but right now, to my knowledge, that has not been an issue that we've dealt with. It's just something that could potentially become an issue.
Yeah, because when they were doing 4, I mean, if we're living it, when they're
BC
doing
has
4.
an 8-period day.
Yeah, that's true. But I was there.
And with the 8 period, that
It
number
could,
go
it
up.
could,
Yeah.
because I was still doing the 4. You're right. Okay, thanks.
I have a question if I can put the light on.
It's on.
So,
Now you're off.
it's off now.
There's, in the exemption, there's 3 criteria: maximum number of students, maximum number of preparations, and number of minutes of instruction. We've really been emphasizing that we want our students to achieve higher. How in the world can they do that when instructional time is being reduced? I feel like we are putting them in a very precocious position to try to make academic achievement, and yet we're going to cut back on instructional time.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. So our intent is not to reduce the instructional time. But getting the exemption from that simply gives us the ability that if we didn't have a teacher, it gives us more opportunity for that. The goal would not be. So for example, if we said that teacher A is going to teach more than the students, the exemption simply covers that if that teacher's absent, or if we aren't able to cover that class, that technically could be looked at as a reduction in the amount of time. We would not plan to reduce any amount of instruction, but the
Maybe
State
we want to
Department's
increase it.
recommendation is those 3 areas.
Okay, can you explain the difference between, I know you can, excuse me. Would you tell me the difference between a certified and a properly certified teacher?
Same thing. They're both the same. Properly certified means that if I'm teaching a science class in a high school, I'm certified to teach science.
Yeah, this bullet doesn't indicate that. This waiver allows schools to employ certified teachers to provide instruction when a properly certified teacher is unavailable.
It's basically saying the same thing. A properly certified means that I don't have any strings on my certification, that there's nothing of question about that I am indeed a science certified if I'm teaching science. In other words, I'm not a math teacher teaching a science class. I am a truly certified science teacher.
Thank you.
If I may to that, why would that need to be a waiver? The second bullet point. That makes no sense to my brain.
So for us to be able to have all of that as an exemption, and I'm assuming your question is regarding the number of.
The second bullet on that page you have right
This
there.
one? Yeah. Mhm.
This waiver allows schools to employ certified teachers to provide instruction when a certified teacher is unavailable.
So that basically just gives us, we're acknowledging that we're going to use a certified teacher to the fullest extent possible.
Do we need to waiver for that? I mean,
That isn't necessarily the waiver itself. That's just using the language that's within those rules and those policies and guidelines that we would be asking for permission overall. Does that make sense?
yeah.
Okay. Our second recommendation for your consideration tonight is to look at is to implement a credit by exam system that we could use in our district to help award credit, particularly looking at areas of students who want to get ahead or advance, but also looking for opportunities where we could use a student's competency skills to allow them to be awarded credit. This recommendation allows us an exemption from 43234 that allows us to implement the credit by exam system for up to 12 credits. This allows us, again, to reward these students for proficiencies they may have or competencies they may have, rather than that traditional pathway of class. For example, a student who may have advanced Spanish skills could potentially look at taking a competency exam and exempt out of certain language courses that would allow them ultimately to be able to take more career pathway courses or also do more dual enrollment. So it really expands the opportunities a student has to take credit, not necessarily to allow them to leave school early, but to allow them to have more opportunity for coursework, to do additional things, but also to allow us to look at students who are moving into our district. Perhaps they've come from other states where we may not have similar programs or other areas. We would be able to then do an exam that would then give them credit for South Carolina purposes, so that it would erase some of the transitional pieces. If something didn't count properly within the transcript monitoring sections, we could then go back and do that. This would take us, admittedly, several years for us to put together, because this would be largely a by-need kind of situation where we would work on this credit system. So we would be developing a credit through assessment, basically developing the assessments as we go. Again, this would be a situation that would allow us to ultimately develop more career pathways, to look at more innovative courses that a student could take, and also that dual credit piece that they could do. The instruction team is going to work on developing these assessments. So this would not be a simple assessment. This would be a highly rigorous, based on the standards, 100% assessment that students would take. So it would have to mirror something very high caliber, such as a state assessment or some type of national assessment that we would use to do this. Our proposal is to allow the student to receive credit if they earn a 75% on that assessment. Again, that assessment would be for it would cover the full content of that course. And these tests have to be treated as high-stakes tests. So in other words, they have to face very, very strong standards. They have to really be formatted in a way that allows for that high level of rigor and challenge. And they also have to be treated as a high-stakes test. So in other words, we have to keep it just as secure as anything that the state would send us in terms of an assessment. When a student takes this assessment, that grade that they earn on it would be what appears on the student's transcript. So for example, if I earned an 84, that is what would replace the traditional grade on my transcripts. Now, what we're proposing, obviously, is that this would be a one-time. So you would get one time to take that assessment for credit. If you aren't successful with meeting that minimum criteria, you would then have to take the course. But also, students would have the opportunity that if they earned an 84 on that assessment, they would then have the opportunity to either accept that credit and say, I'm taking the 84 on my transcripts, or they would then be able to take the class. So there is that double piece in there, because some students may not want an 84 on their transcripts. Once they realize they don't have the proficiencies they thought they had, they may want to go back and take the class and get their A that they're going to earn. So that would be in there. We will develop, obviously, as I said, these assessments really on kind of an as-needed basis as we're developing this out. This is a multi-year project. We hope that the state maybe changes some rules by 2026, that we wouldn't have to ask for this again, but this would at least give us the opportunity to start that work. There are a number of districts across the state that are seeking similar waivers, or some that have already sought those and been approved for some variations of this. We looked at some of theirs and are using their model to help craft ours. And again, Looking at the credit piece here, you can see that this is, again, how that would be reflected on the transcript. And again, the student would have the opportunity to take that assessment or not and take that grade or not. Again, if you approve this tonight, these assessments would begin being developed as soon as we get an approval from the State Board of Education, and we'll continue to add options in there as we go over the coming years, and we'll review these annually and update the current standards. So every time a course changes its standards or we realize we need to re-examine the rigor of the assessment, we would do that. These assessment windows will be established and shared with schools and students, so if they have that special gift or that special circumstance, this would give us an opportunity to do that. Your next steps of what would happen here is, obviously, we will submit all of this information after tonight. We will continue to format it and then submit that for State Board of Education approval. And once that happens, we believe this could potentially, if you approve it tonight, could potentially appear on the October, probably the October State Board of Education meeting would be the earliest, potentially September, but most likely October. Once we submit everything and get it moving, it would be our goal to try to meet that, again, if you approve that. But we will continue to work with the State Department of Education. This does require two layers of approval. First, it would have to be vetted and approved by the senior leadership at the Department of Education, and then it would be moved on to the State Board of Education for approval. So that is my presentation. I'm happy to answer your questions about the rest.
Should we make a motion?
Madam Chair.
No, because I'm not even ready to vote until I get some questions answered. It's not like a debate yet. Like, I don't want to debate it yet. I want to ask a question, if that's okay. So I just have a question before we get to even getting to the motion.
Okay. Ms. Brown?
So Dr. McDonald, welcome to the district. So you probably should know, if nobody told you, you do have 4 board members, I believe, who have education degrees. So sometimes that can be challenging in your position. Probably about, if I added right, Ms. Kessler carrying the bulk of it, about 50 years classroom experience too combined. So we get real passionate about this type of stuff. Looking at your numbers, and again, I could be wrong because I forgot BC did go to the 8 credit, I think, last year. So Ms. Kessler got me on that. But if you can earn up to 12 credits, and the state only requires 24, hypothetically, a child could come in their freshman year, take 12 credits of tests day one, and graduate at age 15. Maybe that's not a bad thing. And I understand that you're doing this to provide opportunities and, additional curriculum, particularly for high flyers, even for, maybe some of our multilanguage learners who need some extra credits and stuff on there. I can understand if they take a language and get some credits for that, that would be awesome because they're getting credits. But that just concerns me when we go up to 12. That's just a lot of potential credits that's not even seat time, number one. Number two, we write the tests. I mean, test writing in general is especially for a standardized test. I mean, that's a lot of, and I don't doubt the capabilities for a moment of you or anybody on your staff. I don't. But that's a lot of stuff that goes into writing things that are, I mean, I can't, I think I'm pretty smart. I couldn't sit here and write an SAT out right now for Kevin to take, So I worry about, just even the fairness of the test, either being too hard or being too easy. So that's the second question I would have, I guess. And then, I think that was it.
So up to 12, that was the number that other districts who have submitted something similar have kind of used as sort of a guard there. The idea, of course, being that a student wouldn't do this to graduate early necessarily, but you're absolutely right. It does only have to get 12. The key here would be to offer those dual credit track courses, so really looking at a whole nother track of courses. I don't know that we believe that we would have a student take advantage of all 12. Certainly it could happen, but we would welcome that, but we'd also have to match them with a program. Again, we wouldn't necessarily offer all 12 classes at one time. That's why I said this is a multi-year rollout. So it may be that in a year we would have opportunity for students to take a competency assessment in Spanish 1, or perhaps the next year could be Algebra 1. So we would steadily progress that till we had a bank of opportunities, and that may very well change. That could be something that we have to come back and say, look, we don't need to move that aggressively. We would need to move that down. The beauty of this is we could decide when and how many that we put in there. We wanted to get a full glimpse and then move forward with that as steadily as we can. I think our goal would be to look for any opportunity that if there is some type of already prepared assessment that meets the rigor of South Carolina standards, that meets the rigor of an assessment of this kind of nature, that we could potentially purchase that, or we could make that assessment available to these students as opposed to us actually writing it. So there's a multiple ways that we could ensure that we have a highly successful assessment, but also making sure that it has absolute integrity. Because again, we know that many kids who are looking at this pathway are kids who are going to excel in spite of us. But we also know that they still need a teacher. And to give them both opportunities is truly what we're looking to be able to do.
All right, we're going to go to
Madam
Ms.
Chair.
Kessler, and then I'm going to go to Mr. Bray. And Ms. Rucker, you have a question too? We'll do it in that.
This is just a comment, me clear it up. This is a tag off of Beth. In the fact of the testing, you indicate here that the students will have a choice of a test to take, and of course, your test wants to be testing the major content and the rigor of the course, so why would you want multiple choices, and why would a kid have a chance to choose which test they want to take?
So it wouldn't necessarily be, if I understood what you're asking, it wouldn't necessarily be multiple test options. They would just have multiple courses that they could take a test for. Am I answering that?
Yeah, but that statement needs to be cleared up, because it says provide students a wide range of exams to choose from based on their knowledge.
So that would be referring to having multiple subject areas they could take. So having a Spanish 1 or a Spanish 3, things like that.
Mr. Bray.
Thank you, ma'am. Question number 1, do we need to approve this waiver or send this waiver up for us to begin on it? Or can we begin the work on it and then send the waiver up after the fact?
So per the way this is written, you all have to approve us to submit the waiver before the state board will receive the waiver.
And we need to do all the groundwork after the waiver is done? I feel like that's putting the cart a bit before the horse.
That's their process.
That's just the state process. Cool. Number 2 is you can take the GBE, and if you don't do well or you don't like your score, because that would be frustrating if you get a 91, but if you took the class, you could probably get 100. But if you take the test and you don't like it, then you can take the course. Are we going to make sure that you can't take the test after you've taken the course?
That would be correct. So the test would not be in lieu of the course. You really kind of have a choice.
Right.
You can't go back. We can't, per the rules and requirements for credit recovery, a student couldn't take that assessment in lieu of that course. They would have to meet the requirements of the course recovery.
Thank you. That was number 1. Are we required to use the test grade as the class grade? Or is that just something we're choosing to do?
That was what we recommended based on that. When you accept the assessment, you're essentially, I guess the way we look at that, you're doing that assessment in lieu of all of the work you could have been exposed to as part of that course. So that's why the 2 would be the same.
And last question was the rollout is kind of still up in the air. Would it be course based, like, hey, we're gonna start in the algebra world and do that, or are we gonna start with 6th grade and move up the line, or is it gonna what y'all's plan there? Have you
Our
talked
goal would
that
be
out?
to look for those that are that make the most logical sense. For example, the one I keep using is Spanish. We get a lot of kids who have language skills that they could be successful in that, so we would look at that language piece. The next one would probably be some of our lower level math classes in high school, looking at those. So we have kind of some thoughts on that. Again, I guess to your point, we're trying not to put the cart before the horse, even though that's what we've got to kind of do to get it moving. Our goal would be to then fully assess assess very quickly what would be those interest areas if a student had this opportunity to take this instead of sitting in the class and then being able to take something else. Because again, we believe this will be matched with the need for more innovative courses. So we're going to have to look for some other things that kids want to take that they would now have room in their schedule to be able to do.
You good?
Yep.
Okay, Ms. Rucker, and then I'll go to Ms. Castles, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
All right, thank you, I appreciate that. So my concern is, been mentioned, but it's around, who develops and who approves the test. So would there be maybe policy to come later, like once this is approved, where, it would kind of spell out how that works? Just because that just seems very vague to me right now, that portion of it, so.
I mean, it would be developed based on the standards of the course. And so the State Department, they don't do they put a stamp of approval on it or no?
They would, in this case, we would have to present, and we would need to present to them annually what progress we're making on the waiver, as well as coming back to this board and saying, here's what we've done, here's what this is doing. That is part of the requirement. We would have to report to you annually what that's happening. We do that as part of the strategic plan work. This would become part of that to give you that annual update. But the State Department will be very involved, because this is such an out-of-the-box kind of piece. They would have to be involved in the creation, the monitoring, because I think they too echoed the same concern about test security, validity, how we develop. So we would, of course, work with the State Department to make sure that they are helping sort of give us that stamp that this is an assessment that really meets those challenging requirements.
Very good, thank you. Thank
Ms.
you.
Castles?
Typically, when a student goes to college, they take tests like this, and I was wondering, this is my ignorance, I don't know, does the institution usually make those tests, or is that a program where they have a company that makes that? But I was thinking that might be something to think about.
I think it's both ways. I think some universities and colleges will use a purchased product that they're using either through some testing service or something like that. Some universities, I remember when I took my placement test, now that's been a while, 20 plus years ago, actually closer to, it's been a long time. It was actually an assessment that was developed by the professors at the university. So again, we would want, because it takes hours, as you all have said, it takes hours to develop a valid question. So our hope would be to look for where those opportunities are to use a service of some sort that could provide that assessment. But at minimum, we want to be sure that it fully matches the standards of South Carolina and that it also is a highly rigorous assessment. So these won't be easy tests. These are going to be assessments to really challenge these kids. But I guess to your question, we could go either way, looking at what would be the best to meet those requirements.
And I was also thinking, would this be a situation where there might be a class normally where there's a prerequisite to take something, but they might be able to get to the meat of the course and take one of those classes?
That could be an excellent example of where this would be most applicable. For example, if you were trying to take a higher level math class and you'd been really, really highly successful in a lower level and you want to sort of progress, there could be some pathways for that as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions?
You'd have a question? Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we accept administration's recommendation regarding recommendation 1 exemption from the state statutes listed so that the administration may apply for the exemption with the state school board, with the caveat that no teacher would be forced to do this
Second.
without volunteering.
All right, I have a motion, and Troy and I already have a second. Do we have, by Mr. Bray, do we have any discussion?
Madam Chair, what was the compensation method for those? Is it going to be an hourly thing, a student head thing, a class thing?
It's based on the number of classes they teach and their daily rate as a teacher. So we're basically paying them for the portion of their day that would be their
So taking the
planning
daily
time.
rate and then multiplying it by the additional daytime. Okay, that's all I had, thank you.
Any other discussion? All right. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Now, Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a second motion. I would like to make a motion to approve administration's recommendation regarding Regulation 43-234, basically for the 12-hour credits of testing, so that administration may go ahead and apply for that waiver with the caveat that the administration will report back to the school board on progress with that and any coursework that may be being designed to be offered at the January workshop, and that the board would approve each class prior to it being offered.
I'll second that.
I have a motion by Ms. Brown, a second by Mr. Key. Is there any discussion?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Gray?
Ms. Brandon, would you take a friendly amendment that it's not just brought back to us, but it's actually, we have to vote on it prior to implementation?
Well, I think I covered that when I
Covered
said
that by the
prior
individual
to being,
class.
prior, any class, they have to bring it to
Class
you
has to be
in
done.
January, bring it to y'all in January to see what, give y'all an update.
And
But then before,
anytime a class is offered via test, it must be voted
the
on.
board has to be approving.
Rock and roll. I do have one other question. I would love between now and January, so I kind of see three tracks. There's the kids coming in, and so they need to catch a class. When I switched to BC in 10th grade, I didn't have health class because of the school I went to. So in 10th grade, or 12th grade, I took health with a bunch of 9th graders, with Miss Summers teaching sex ed, so that was interesting. So I would have loved this at that time. But I see that track, and so the grade might not matter there. And then I see the kind of catching up track, or like, hey, I want to get to working in the career field, or I want to get to the Kate Center, and so the grade might not be overly important. And so those two tracks are good. But I don't really see I hate the term high flyer, but I don't see the track of like the person who's trying to quickly get into dual credit so they can get to college, taking it if we're using the score of the test as the grade for the class. Because those kids are going to be working so hard to GPA that if anything is less than a 96-ish, that's an arbitrary number, don't quote me on that, but anything less than mid-90s isn't there, they're going to just take it like a CLEP exam for college, like Liz was saying, and then if it's not good enough, they're just going to take the class. And I just kind of see that as being somewhat inefficient. I don't know how much authority you have to make that determination, but I could be wrong, but like if you CLEP for college or whatever they're called now, there is no grade, you just get, that class is just removed. There's no GPA assigned to it. Is that feasible or no?
So based on the feedback that we've had, that wouldn't be something that's allowed under the current non-exemptable statutes because we have to give the grade. So the grade is required, so we can't ask for permission from that one. So that would not, we wouldn't be able to
Have to
give it.
give a grade.
Because that is,
We have the autonomy to figure out how we determine that grade.
right.
And the easiest way is just, I still see that concern, and I would love to see if there's any cool, innovative thoughts on, maybe you bracket or something of that sort. If you make in the bracketed range, then you get the highest score of that bracket range. Something that it doesn't just become this inefficient, 40 kids go take this class real quick, and only the ones who get above a 96 actually use it, whereas, the other 36 kids decide, oh, we're going to sit in the class. So, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Yes, ma'am.
I'm really excited, Dr. McDonald, about you bringing these waivers to us and hope that you'll continue to bring innovation to the board in the future. So I'm glad that we're thinking a little bit outside the box and stuff. And my only thing is, I think that this last thing we just discussed can be very beneficial to a lot of students. And I know a lot of times we kept using the word high flyer, but I see other alternatives, and I don't want to see us just thinking only of programs that are assisting one group of kids when we have a whole lot of people up and down that spectrum. And you did mention like maybe some multi-language learners, and I just really want these opportunities, and I'm sure you will, though, to be offered across the board to all of our high school students, regardless of socioeconomic background, things like that, with our guidance counselors and our very capable and wonderful administrators, really sitting down with each and every student, recognizing where, hey, you have some weaknesses over here, you need to take some extra math, a lot of math, let's give you a lot of math, but maybe because we're giving you extra math, we can give you a credit of this off these tests or something. That's how I envision it. I wasn't necessarily just saying, hey, let's get the high flyers some more credits, because we already have a very rigorous AP program. We already have dual enrollment. So we do a very, very good job with high flyers, and I think you've already probably seen that in this district. And it's the other 80% that I'm very excited to see us do some more things for. So to me, I want to see it move more in that direction as y'all are starting to build the program. That's just
But if
one
you see
person.
somewhere we need to improve, please let us know.
We'll do our best, but that is our goal as well. We want to help all students be able to achieve more.
Thank you, Dr. McDonald. All right, next we'll move on to item B, and that is consideration of overnight out-of-state student travel request for BC High School Chorus to attend Getting to the Roots of American Music in Pigeon Forge, Nashville, and Memphis, Tennessee, March 13th through the 17th, 2025. And I'll entertain a motion for that. Ms. Branham?
I make a motion to approve the out-of-state overnight student travel request for BC High School Chorus.
Now, second it.
I have a motion by Ms. Branham, a second by Mr. Key. Any discussion? All in
Ma'am.
favor? Ms. Kessler, okay?
That's $41,032. I hope and that's a lot of money for a teacher to work and have to raise that kind of money in students. Is there going to be any kind of help that the district can lend to some of these?
I mean, they are doing the fundraising at this, if they have booster monies that they can contribute to it. They didn't break it down that way, and that hasn't been a request.
Are
but
they
that's
going to get
certainly-
that information out to the public for any help that might be available?
We can
Thank
try
you.
to do that. Mhm.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right. Now we'll move on to item 9, and that is announcements. August 2nd, tomorrow morning, starting at 8:30, we'll have our convocation at our new tax center. August 7th is the first day of school for students. August 15th is our reception recognition honoring our teachers and support staff of the year at the PAC Atrium. And then August 15th, we will also have our regular monthly meeting of the Board of Trustees. That'll start at 6 o'clock. And we'll look forward to seeing everyone then. I'm glad everyone was here today, and again, hope everyone had a great summer, and we look forward to starting next week, and we'll look forward to seeing everybody, of course, too, tomorrow morning. And at this time, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
I make a motion that the Board of Trustees enter closed session for legal advice concerning Board Policy KEC, consideration of personnel appointments and resignations, consideration of 4 requests for out-of-district tuition waiver.
Okay. I have a motion to go into executive session. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Bray. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, opposed, motion carries. We're now in executive session.
I make a motion that the meeting be reconvened in open session and the appropriate affidavit be executed.
Have a motion and a second to reconvene in open session. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We are now in open session. I will now entertain motions for executive session.
I make a motion to approve administration's recommendations for personnel appointments and resignations.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
I make a motion to approve candidate 1 at Brooklyn Casey High School as assistant principal.
I have a motion. I have a second by Mr. Bray. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
I make a motion to approve candidate number 2 for District Education Center and Coordinator of Special Ed.
Second.
Have a motion and a second by Mr. Bray. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
I make a motion to approve the assistant principal at number 3, Fulmer Middle School.
Second.
Have a motion and a second by Mr. Bray. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries.
I make a motion to approve candidate 4 at Brooklyn Casey High School as athletic director and teacher.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
I make a motion.
Wait a minute. All in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed?
Sorry.
Okay, that motion carries 4-3. All right.
I make a motion to approve student number 1, number 2, and number 3 and 4 for admission to LexingtonTwo waiver of tuition and waived tuition.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, motion carries. I'll now entertain.
Move to adjourn. Second.
Ms. Branham, I have a motion by Ms. Branham, second by Mr. Bray. All in favor, aye. We are now adjourned. Thank you.
I moved.
Because